Oh, good morning, LinkedIn. I hope everybody's well. I'm here with Claire Shelley, who I will let introduce herself in a minute. I'm Mel Johnson with the Sussex Social, and I work with individuals and businesses, predominantly within the professional services space, to help them navigate the world of content marketing. So understand what they're saying, where they need to be saying it, and who they need to be saying to. And I do that through a combination of social media, but also email marketing strategies. So Claire and I are going to talk to you today about how you can stop leaving money on the table and how a robust email strategy will help you to create more successful meta ad campaigns, because the two are really, really closely interlinked, and using both will basically improve your ROI and help you get more people through the door in a much easier way. So Claire, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Hi, Mel. So I'm Claire Shelley. I'm a meta ad strategist, and I work with service providers, helping them to use the power of paid advertising to attract regular clients without spending more time on social media. So whether you want to grow your email list or fill your next webinar, ads are a great opportunity and way of doing that without selling your soul to the algorithm.
I think that's a great introduction, particularly these days, because it's just everything's just so saturated, and things get lost, and in reality such a small percentage of people see our posts, which is why it's absolutely key, I think, to nail those ads and at least nail that email marketing. So once you've got people through the door, you can actually nurture them and nurture the people who have opted in to hear from you, who are interested in your product or service. So I think for us, Claire, we probably really want to start with sort of explaining the importance of integrating email and meta ad campaigns, and just kind of try and be quite practical, because I think a lot of the back end stuff is quite technical, and I don't think we want to get too much into the tech today. But I think what I guess the conversation we were having just now, what you see is that quite often people come to you and say, oh, I want to use meta ads to sell my £2,000 or £3,000 coaching service, and when actually it's those people are probably going to be they're going to have to spend time, money and resource and do some work around that, particularly if it's a coaching service or something like that. And I think that's the difficulty with that, is it's quite difficult to get cold or warm leads to buy from your meta ads, particularly if you've got a long sales cycle. I mean, I had, just to give an example, I had somebody come back to me the other day who I worked with 5 years ago. And they've been on my email list the whole time, and I've kind of been nurturing that way. And I think so I think what we need to do is that's actually, as you said, what's the softer offer? So how do we so it's having something in place that you can, and it could be a free workshop or a downloadable freebie or lead magnets, as we would tend to call them, and that's something that people actually really want and need, and that is a low level of investment for them, so they can get to know you. So I think that kind of the starting point that you would generally go for.
And I think this is, so what I see with service providers is that they will have attempted ads, and that they will come to me, and that we'll have a conversation about ads, and they'll say that the ads haven't been successful. But what they're really saying is that the strategy that's in place isn't quite in the right place. So as you mentioned, if you're a service provider and you're selling something that's thousands of pounds, you are very unlikely to get a result if you use an ad that's saying buy this thing that's costing thousands of pounds, because people, as we know, we need to get to know people and have trust in that company, and all of that relationship needs to be built up before they're going to make a purchase. So the key with ads is having the right strategy. So in these instances, if you're selling something that's high ticket or high value, then I would always start out with something that is going to be a much softer approach first. So we're enticing the person, we're building our brand awareness, we're getting them to know who we are and what we do, what we're about, before we start making any sort of sales signals, as it were. So I would always say something like, a free resource would be a great place to start, because then you're enticing that person to say, you know, take action and say, right, this is something that I need, this is a problem that I need solving. So they're going to consume your free resource. Then you have that great opportunity with the email marketing to then start following that up, and the nurture process begins, because ads don't work in isolation. They are part of a bigger process, a bigger marketing strategy. And so I always think that when I hear somebody saying ads don't work for me, it's not the ads that don't work, it's the fact that the whole process and the system hasn't been set up to support the ads.
Yeah, and I think that's really key. I mean, what I see is, obviously looking at the other end, is that I've got a client that I regularly work with, and they run free or low cost training, sort of about once a quarter, once every 2 months or so. And what's historically happened is that they've been doing an awful lot of stuff manually that they now don't have to, because we've connected it all up. But actually, they've got this huge list with thousands of people on it, but it's literally a list of names and email addresses. So they've got no idea who attended which training, whether they're a client, unless they cross references because it's a subscription service, whether they're a lapsed client. And then occasionally, and this is what happened, they'll sort of sporadically send out a newsletter type email to everybody within the database. And while there's nothing wrong with doing that, it's a really missed opportunity.
Yeah.
Because, you know, we all consume a huge amount of content. So somebody signing up to your downloadable freebie, if they then get that download and they don't hear from you for 3 months, they think, I didn't sign up for that. I don't know who this person is.
How do they get on this list?
And you've lost them. So effectively, you've kind of wasted the money because you haven't taken them on that journey. So it's really important, as you say, to get the kind of strategy around your emails right that is integrated with your ads. So if you are offering something like a workshop or a free download, it's a really simple thing. Is once that person comes into your email list, is that they get a tag or they're grouped in a certain way, so you know that was their entry point.
Yeah.
You know, so you've got all different things for entry points, and then over time you can send them a series of automated emails that are kind of building the know, like, trust, building that relationship, you know. And that data is amazing as well, because actually you can see exactly who's opening those emails, who's reading those emails, who's opening them, what links they're clicking on. Yeah. So that can then refeed back into your ads and all of the other organic content that you're using. And over time, you get to know what works.
Yes.
So it's just really important to kind of set it up from the outset. And, you know, and again, I mean, I think people need, well, there's obviously the old sales and marketing rule of 7, which is apparently taken from some research they did in California in the 1930s on how many times people needed to see a movie theatre poster in order to buy a ticket to go to the cinema. Well, that's nearly 100 years ago, and things have kind of moved on from them. And they now estimate that we need between kind of 5 and 52 touch points before somebody will buy from you. And obviously, you know, there's no conclusive evidence around that, but that is an awful lot of contacts.
It is.
So actually drip feeding that email, drip feeding emails once you've got people through the door is a really effective way of reminding people that you're there, and kind of structuring in a way that gives them some useful information and some more things that they could do from the downloadable freebie.
And I think just life in general, from, like, as you say, from like the 1930s to now, has moved on so much. And we're so much more busier, and there's so much more stuff vying for our attention, that it's so easy, I think, to see something online, maybe an ad or maybe it's an email that's popped into your inbox, and just to get distracted so quickly and easily and move on and completely forget about it. And so having those regular reminders and you know, keeping top of mind is so essential, because I just think in general we're so much busier and got so much more going on. Life's a faster pace, isn't it?
I think that's absolutely key. But also I think, like, and I guess this is kind of like we've sort of integrated over the top of the how as well, as I think that people, particularly like with free with workshops, and I know you run ads to drive people towards kind of workshops and webinars and things like that. It's like, if it's low cost or free, everybody's so busy, and the reality is you will get quite a high dropout rate, because it's you've delivered that ad to that person, they've gone, that looks great, but it's in 4 weeks' time, and that emotional connection might have waned, or they might have moved on to thinking about something else, as we all do. And so I think what I say to people is, okay, well, you're delivering this training, but what happens once they've signed up? Because what usually happens is people will get one email and it will say, thanks for signing up to this, here it is, or here's the date, or whatever. And people go, oh, okay, that's great, and they don't open it, they don't attend, and they kind of move on and they forget about it. So I think it's really key to consider what happens between, if it's an event, between people signing up and that event taking place. So sort of setting up a series of reminders to kind of do things like introduce yourself and your business, who's delivering the training, what have people said about it before, to kind of build that excitement and anticipation. And once it's happened, again, what's that kind of what's the ongoing process? So it might be, do we want to run some more ads to retarget people to take them to the next level? And and how do we kind of continue to follow that up with our sort of email strategy? So once they get to the point where they're ready to buy, because it can be years for some people, you're the person who's at the top, hopefully at the top of their inbox and in front of them on their social media.
And you mentioned this earlier, Mel, that it's having people on a list and having that data and having all of the tags and things, to tell you where the person came into your world and how they're interacting with your emails is so vital for building up that picture of what your customer journeys look like. And if you're an established business and you have more than one offering, and more than one service, there are going to be different ways that people will interact with you, and different people will have different wants and needs, and come to your business for different reasons. So being able to map all that out and have all that valuable data in your your email database is just it's key, isn't it, for not only understanding what if a particular email has a very high open rate, then you're able to say, okay, that's been popular, and then that will be able to form your different products and services going forwards, because you're just getting that more you're getting data to say, yes, this is right, and this is this isn't popular.
And also I think as well there's and I will talk a little bit more about retargeting ads in a minute, but it's what I think one of the things that there is a real, this is kind of slightly off topic, but there is a real, quite often I find, I did ad sales for 12 years, but there is a real disconnect between sales and marketing sometimes. And I think actually if you, when you're in your email marketing system, you can see who are your most engaged audience, who out of that audience is engaged with what you say. And that's a perfect opportunity to reach out to them personally, whether it's like, giving them a call or sending them a more kind of personalized email. But within that, I think once you've got all the tags and the strategy in place, you can make your emails quite personal, because they're segmented to different people depending on where they've entered.
Yes.
And what they're doing. And also I think one of the things that I sort of wanted to touch on as well is around, I think quite often there's a perception that abandoned cart emails, to go all American, so the ones you get when you land on a sales page and then you leave, the ones that come back and normally say, oh, did you forget this, or buy these boots or something, can actually be really effective for service-based businesses. Because with the best one, you might get on there, oh, I need to, sometimes it's a case of like, oh, this looks great, but I need to go and ask my boss about it, my boss isn't there, or I need to see if I can fit it in my diary. And then it's and then it's gone. So having those handy reminders and sequences can be set up for that as well.
Yeah.
So I think we're just going on to, like, I think we've talked a lot about the what, but I think just giving an example really of how to create engaging campaigns. Because what you very rightly pointed out at the outset is just not to go straight into the hard sale. I mean, if you're selling something that's, I don't know, colouring kits for kids, for example, and it's been raining for 6 weeks, you probably are going to do quite well with meta ads, that are a one-off and kind of standalone, because you're answering that problem straight away, and it's a low cost, it's not a considered purchase. But I think, as you say, if you're selling a £2,000 or £3,000 plus product or service, you kind of need to nurture people. So as you said, we said offer something people want that is low cost or free. So how would you kind of start the ads process with that then?
Yeah, so you're absolutely right, Mel. So if it was a very low ticket item, then obviously ads could work, and you could go straight to sale, and that would be absolutely fine. So for some service providers, they might have a strategy where instead of having a free thing, they might have something that's like $7. I see the $7 offers quite often popping up on ads, and that works because you're giving away a resource that is of high value but for a very low price. So that is another option for getting for audience building and getting people onto your list. But more often people will go for a lower something for free. So something that, it could be one of two things. That you could have a free resource that people can download. So then, as you've mentioned, once the person's downloaded that free resource, then there's an email sequence that follows that up that helps to nurture and to keep that person engaged. One thing that I see working really well in the service for service providers and coaching particularly is to do webinars. So if you set up a campaign that is going to fill a webinar, so just as an example, a client of mine had a webinar that they were running and doing all their promotion organically, and they were getting on average around sort of 30 to 50 people signed up, whereas when we brought ads in, they were getting 300-500 people signed up. So it's a massive difference because of the fact that when you're marketing on social media, you're essentially reaching anybody. You're not reaching a targeted audience because it's anyone who's connected with you or happens to see your post. Whereas with ads, we're creating campaigns that are highly targeted and specific for the person that you want to reach. So say, just for example, you were a leadership coach, you'd be wanting to reach people who were interested in their career development or leadership skills or anything that is pertinent to that particular person and what they're trying to sell. So that's why ads are that much more effective than just regular organic social media marketing. So the strategy that I see work quite well is to use the ads to drive people to sign up to that free webinar. As you say, there is a drop-off. We're not going to have everybody turn up to that webinar. No. There's going to be a percentage of people that don't turn up, which is absolutely fine, because if we're getting bigger numbers, then we're still getting a good number of people turn up live on the day. So the ad would get them to sign up to the webinar. Then emails would remind the person that the webinar's coming up, and as you say, build that anticipation and that excitement for the event. And then the person would deliver the webinar, and then either sell at the end of that webinar, or potentially the sales can go on afterwards. So, for example, they might at the end of the webinar invite people to jump on a call with them, or they might have a series of emails that then invites the participants then to go and check out the sales page for the service that they're offering. And then if you combine all that with ads as well, so you're you're getting on calls with people. You've probably got social media, organic strategy going on as well. You've got ads as well that then are, once the webinar is completed, the ads then switch over to sales ads. So you're then getting those sales ads in front of the people who have attended the webinar and saying, come and have a look at what I'm offering and whatever that service might be. So you're then able to remind people. So it's just about that constant kind of reminders and catch-ups and keeping top of mind about the fact that you've got this offer that's available, and it's going to be aligned with the people who have come to your webinar, because they've already put their hand up and said they're interested in this particular area. They have this particular issue or problem that they want to solve. So therefore, you're able to align your webinar with your end product that you want to sell. And so it just all works quite nicely. And that I would call a webinar sales funnel, and that works particularly well for service providers and coaches. I think just because if you're promoting or selling something that's thousands of pounds or thousands of dollars, people want to be engaged with you. They want to get to know you, and a webinar is a really quick and effective way of being able to demonstrate your expertise and for people to build rapport with you. I think that's why it works so well.
I think that's a really, I think that they do work well, because I'm still, obviously in both of us being in the marketing space, I'm still a massive advocate of, you need to get people to talk to you. And it's much easier to have a sales call if you've already built that relationship. And I quite often, when I do follow up emails for these types of things, or even if it's something like you've released a white paper, including a short survey can be really, really powerful, because actually you can collect information about what people think and what they know about your product. So also actually you can ask people if they do want to have a call with you to discuss it.
Yeah.
So it's easy to open. It makes it so much easier to open up that conversation.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Because that person's warmed to you already, and you don't. It's not a great big leap of being a complete stranger saying, "Jump on a call with me," which never works.
No.
Or it's much better. It's another step towards, isn't it?
Yeah, and you've also got the thing as well, is actually if you've done these webinars and you've run these targeted ads, your open rates and click-through rates are generally higher on your emails. Because when the email lands in the inbox, people go, oh yes, you're more memorable, that's more regular. And it actually, I don't want to get too much into the tech to say, but what we have within email marketing is what we call kind of nurture sequences or automations, and then you have your campaign emails. So your nurture sequences, I can't talk this morning, and automations are the ones that kind of go out in the background when, as you sleep, if you like. So you might have to do a little bit of troubleshooting, and it will tell you if something stops working. But actually they're the ones that, if you were running ads for a downloadable freebie, for example, that ads, once they sign up, would then trigger that automation sequence, and that can go, it might be a weekly email, it might be monthly, it sort of depends on your sales cycle and what the kind of strategy is behind that. So that's building those relationships in the background, but also it's also kind of going to influence sales over time and give you a much better understanding of your sales cycle. But then actually you've got your campaign emails that you might send out to your whole audience, or you may send out to kind of segments of your audience, and those are those kind of, what I don't really like the term newsletter, because I think as soon as you say newsletter, everybody glazes over and says, oh my God, it's going to be so long and it's going to be all about them. But actually, it's thinking about, okay, what are the things that we're going to actually include in that are kind of interesting and engaging. But what I see is when we've got this automated sequence of emails going out, it really does influence your open rate.
Yeah.
In a positive way, whereas actually what I see is people are concerned, if we're doing a specific campaign, people aren't going to want to hear from us anymore. And quite often it's the opposite. And if it's not and if that's it's like everything, it's all a case of kind of testing and measuring, really.
It is, yeah. And I think if you've got something that someone particularly wants and needs they need that assistance or help or whatever, they're going to be keen to hear from you, and that should never be a barrier to sending emails. And like you say, if you send emails and people are unsubscribed, then that's only a good thing, because they're obviously not going to be people who would buy from you anyway. I think just sending, and as you mentioned, sending those more specific targeted emails to different segments of your list is always going to be better, because people can come to your business at different points and for different reasons, and so we want to be talking to them in a way that resonates with them and that is of interest to them, rather than a generic broad brush kind of, this could appeal to anybody on my list. It's going to keep their attention better.
No, exactly, that's exactly the case. And actually sometimes that can sometimes sound like, oh my god, that's a lot of work, but actually, that's something you consider, I think, as your business grows. But also sometimes it's just a case of tweaking a couple of lines in the email. It doesn't have to, or the subject header, it doesn't have to be a completely new email every single time, in the same way as it doesn't need to be a completely new ads at the same time. So we've got a few people watching. I forgot to say at the beginning, like, please do post in the comments if you've got any questions or any feedback for us, and we will try and answer them at the end. But I think one of the points we want to discuss is really, and I guess we've covered this up, so it's probably an opportunity to summarise, is a kind of how using ads and emails will automate your marketing and save you valuable time. So we've talked an awful lot about sort of lead magnets and free downloads. I think we've talked a lot about free downloads, but actually, like, kind of short training videos can work quite well, and just basically what we call gated content, so things that people need to sign up for. So once Claire has set up your ad campaign, it will automate and run for as long as you want or you need it to. And then in the background, you would have that nurture sequence and that tag, so that person gets those specific emails going out to them at specific intervals. So that there's a kind of opportunity for automation behind the scenes, which is incredibly valuable in terms of just time and cost saving.
It's just such a valuable asset, I think, to have in a business, because something like a free download, or maybe it's a template, or as you say, it could be a free video, it could be anything that is something that you're going to make once and you're not going to have to keep doing. So a webinar obviously requires your time and your presence, whereas once you've created that free resource, then that's done. You don't have to worry about it. So we would set that up so that ads would attract people to that particular thing. They would download it, and the evergreen nature of that is brilliant, because it's all happening in the background. When once you set it up once, it only takes that first initial time to set up. So you create your resource, the ad campaign brings people into your list, you have that nurture sequence, and then that's it. It's going on in the background. And if you're a service provider or a coach, making sure that your audience is continually getting refreshed and topped up is so essential, because of the fact that whenever we try and sell something, we're only going to get a small percentage of people that actually buy. So it's essential to keep that audience growing, and if you can do that without having to lift a finger, then that's just so valuable. So I would always recommend that people have some form of. And the good thing about lead generation campaigns is that they are a low-cost campaign to run as well. So they're not going to cost a huge amount. So you could easily run an ad campaign like that for £10, maybe £20 a day. So that's just ticking over in the background all the time. And so you're continuously refreshing your audience, and you are able to nurture them via the email nurture sequence. So you're keeping them engaged. And then once your nurture sequence is finished, like your introduction warm-up sequence is finished, you could then potentially switch to a sales sequence. So then potentially you're making money whilst you're not doing anything as well. I mean, it really does work quite nicely once you've got that set up and integrated. And why not sort of make the most of technology to enable these things to sort of, have those systems around your business that just it just helps you to grow your business and your revenue without requiring your time.
Yeah, and I think that's so key. I mean, a client I've been working with recently, well, for probably about a year now, actually. I mean, we've got, obviously, I talked a little bit about this earlier, about setting all of their everything up for their free, and they do free sometimes, and sometimes it's paid. And there's there is obviously, if it's paid, it's got to be integrated with Stripe or PayPal, which is obviously which can be done. And is really, really, really effective. But once that's actually set up, if you're then running the same training again and you know it works, it is really a case of actually just replicating everything.
Yeah.
So it's like everything, isn't it? The initial research and laying those foundations takes time, but once you've got that right, you've got something to build upon.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just, you don't need to reinvent the wheel, do you? Once you've got something that works and that you know is of interest to people, and you've sold it, then just reinvent it or repeat it and keep doing the same thing over and over, because there's you're always going to get different people, especially if you're using ads. You can just bring different people in each time, and So,
I think that's absolutely essential. Well, I think we're probably about time to wrap up now, because we've been we're at 31 minutes, and I normally try and stick to half an hour, because I know people tend to sort of wander off after that. But no, thank you so much for joining me, Claire. Do you want to let everyone know how they can get in touch with you, or if you've got
sure.
downloadable freebie that you want to share?
Of course I do. Of course I do. Yes. No, I've got so come find me on LinkedIn, obviously, or Facebook or Instagram. I'm going to put my my details in the comments of the LinkedIn Live. I've got a resource that helps you to put together a high converting ad. So if you are new to ads and you're wanting to dip your toe in the water, the download will walk you through all the key elements of what makes a high converting ad, so that you can start in a strong position. So that's available on my website or on my socials. So go have a look, and feel free to grab a copy.
Excellent. Well, obviously you can also find me on LinkedIn, and I actually haven't got a downloadable freebie at the moment, because I am a really big advocate of getting people to actually talk to people. So every month I give away I give people the opportunity to win a kind of free mini marketing review, so we can kind of hone on a really specific area of your business and your challenges, and that goes into a random prize draw, which is no more scientific than I say to one of my children, can you pick a number between 1 and whatever the number is. And it's just a sort of 60 minutes of quite practical advice, really, and sometimes just breaking down barriers. So I will also share that in the chat. But if anybody's got any questions or any comments, or wants to reach out to myself or Claire, then do. Really hope you found it useful. Like all of these things, I've just written some notes of my own homework that I need to do, and things that you're like, oh, I've done that really well for everybody else, but perhaps it needs a little bit of work from my end.
It's the marketer's curse, isn't it?
It is. Well, it's what everybody says about builders or gardeners. It's the same.
Yeah.
It's great to practice what everybody says, practice what you preach, but I think sometimes the reality looks a little bit different from that. But thank you so much for joining me, Claire. It's been really interesting. Thank you.
No, thank you.
Right, bye everybody. Thanks for watching.